Now, Russians will have a new favorite movie, Don't Look Up, because finally, something has entered combat duty in Ukraine that could potentially increase attendance at Kobzon's concerts.
I'm pleased to announce that the transfer of F-16 aircraft from Denmark and the Netherlands is already underway. And these fighter jets will be flying in Ukrainian skies as early as this summer, so that Ukraine can continue to effectively defend itself against Russian aggression.
Russia has finally taken on the image of a crazed anthill, where a single queen in the Kremlin sends thousands of obedient zombies to their deaths. And they don't ask themselves why or how long this will go on. A Russian has no goal there, he's only the path to a body bag.
I joined the army on my own free will. I fought properly, damn it, more than once. And in the end, instead of gratitude, they just threw us at bunkers, at tanks, at machine guns. I'm basically a mortarman, an artilleryman, you could say. I don't have experience, it doesn't matter. It's just that what's happening. It's just something honestly completely unbelievable. It's a nightmare.
And continues to crawl forward, leaving behind a bloody, stinking trail. There are two main factors behind this Pyrrhic victory. Moscow doesn't care about losses, and is literally flooding the front with cannon fodder. The feat of Matrosov, who covered an embrasure with his own body, is no longer considered a heroic act in the modern Russian army, but a duty.
Colonel Averyanov lined us up again and crudely insisted that we are not entitled to any leave, rest, payments, or medical care, and that our task is, quote, to pave the way for those coming behind us with our own bodies. End of quote.
The second factor helping the orcs to advance is their total air superiority. In the first year of the full-scale invasion, this was not a decisive factor. The flying terrorists were afraid to fly deep into Ukraine or even approach the front, because they would be shot down immediately.
While the whole world is discussing the issue of closing the skies over Ukraine today, our air defense is successfully carrying out its mission. And today is truly a fruitful day. A lot of enemy equipment has been shot down today.
But then Moscow copied the West's technology for guided aerial bombs. That is, they attach wings and a guidance system to a regular bomb and launch it from a safe distance.
Russia began using guided aerial bombs, or CABs, in March of last year, but started using them on a large scale during the battle for Avdiivka. They bombarded the city with these aerial bombs, leaving practically nothing of it. At the height of the fighting, Ukrainian soldiers counted up to 150 or even 200 KAB street strikes per day. They became a cheap alternative to cruise missiles.
The occupiers simply started leveling the front line with Fab 500 and Fab 1500 bombs. The numbers refer to the weight of the bomb. Can you imagine the destructive power they possess? And while the world is developing artificial intelligence, making breakthroughs in medicine, creating artificial eyes, in Russia they enthusiastically and proudly presented the FAB 3000. Just a metal turnip that can destroy and kill even more.
This time the Russians announced the launch of mass production of the FAB 3000.
A huge amount of work has been done.
The FAB 3000 are high-explosive aerial bombs weighing 3 tons. They even brought Shoigu to the launch of their manufacturing process.
The output has increased almost 22 times.
This is a really, truly, an exceptionally big bomb. The guidance methods that existed previously and were in use before didn't allow this powerful and destructive bomb to hit with any real accuracy at all whatsoever.
The Russian liberators no longer capture cities, they destroy them. This is the official military tactic of a state that in the 21st century holds a seat on the UN Security Council.
I'll tell you a secret, Ace. We will definitely do it.
No army in the world is capable of holding the line under such conditions. Ukrainian forces have to retreat in order to save the lives of their soldiers. Obviously, the maniac in the sky needs to be brought down somehow, otherwise he could turn all of Ukraine into Vovchansk and Avdiivka. From the very first days of the invasion, Ukrainian military and government officials have been demanding that our Western allies provide us with fighter jets, specifically the F-16. Over the past 2 years, the civilized world has gone through all the stages of acceptance. From complete denial,
At the moment, the possibility of transferring fighter jets is not being considered.
to the point where the commander-in-chief of Ukraine can confidently come out and publicly state the advanced F-16 fighter jet is already present and operational in Ukraine. For now, it is understood there are only a limited number of these sophisticated aircraft, and precisely no one currently knows the exact operational count. It would be rather reckless to trust the official information that there are only 6. There is a war going on, and it's unlikely that the real combat potential would be announced to the enemy on television. But the very fact that the legendary F-16s have entered service with the Ukrainian Air Force has already caused panic in the swamps.
Today, it became known that the Americans will equip the Ukrainian F-16s with the most advanced weaponry. According to the Wall Street Journal, the agreements have been finalized and the Pentagon has decided to arm the fighters with air-to-ground and air-to-air missiles. It has also been decided to give the green light for the fighters to strike targets in Russia.
From the very first day, it became known about the decision to supply Ukraine with F-16s. The Kremlin's brainwashers began preparing the Z-fanatic Reich for something bad.
Well, we shouldn't underestimate this. In any case, an aircraft that will try to inflict damage.
They can carry cruise missiles with a range from 250 to 400 kilometers. They are quite capable from the so-called launch line of reaching targets both in Crimea and in the rest of the Russian Federation. As a military man, I have one question. Guys, these are carriers of nuclear bombs.
Can the F-16 become that very game changer that will turn the tide of the war? If they give us 1,000 of them, then undoubtedly. If it's up to 100 units as planned, we shouldn't expect a quick capitulation of Russia. But they will significantly adjust the situation at the front. First and foremost, this means strengthening Ukrainian air defense and hunting down Russian KAB carriers. Now, before every flight, a Russian pilot will be writing a will and putting coins on his eyes.
Today, the most unpleasant thing that can happen is the presence of an air-to-air missile, well, an anti-aircraft missile, with a range of about 300 kilometers. That's what the Americans are apparently planning to supply them with now. We need to see how this will look in order to push our aircraft away from the line of contact.
After the initial shock, Kremlin propaganda is now trying to convince its lackeys, especially those in the trenches, that there is no danger, that the F-16s are harmless and outdated jalopies.
The Su-35 is one of the newest fighter jets in the ranks of the Russian Air Force and military. It has been in service since 2014. The F-16, on the other hand, has been in service since 1975.
And besides, Konashenkov has long since destroyed all of them, both in the air and on the ground.
The Russians started talking about an F-16 allegedly destroyed in Ukraine. They even posted a photo supposedly confirming this information. However, it all turned out to be a lie. The story about the destruction of a Western fighter jet was spread by Z-Telegram channels. In reality, the downed fighter turned out to be a US aircraft that crashed on the 22nd of October 2014 in the state of Kansas.
Russians really love to destroy equipment even before it arrives at the front. Remember, all the Leopards were destroyed a second after the decision was made to send them.
The Ministry of Defense published new footage of foreign armored vehicles being destroyed during an attempted Ukrainian counteroffensive. Everything was filmed from the onboard targeting system of a Russian helicopter. The video shows the silhouette characteristic of German Leopard tanks. Apparently, it got caught in a trap on a minefield where it was taken out by our military pilots.
With humorous, it's just mystical. More of them have been destroyed than Ukraine ever had. But they still keep firing and destroying the orgs. Can you imagine how many F-16s the Kremlin will shoot down just before lunch?
We ended up with a total of 27,000,001, exactly.
So what kind of machine is the F-16, and why are such high hopes pinned on it? The F-16 really isn't a new aircraft. It entered service in 1978. But since then, the aircraft has undergone extensive modernization, and now it is a modern weapon, on par with the newest Russian Wunderwaffe.
What Ukraine is asking for now, and why in fact they can compete, many people say it's an old machine, that nowadays all the air defense systems are powerful. If you need aviation, yes, the F-16 is a good option because the F-16 is just a bit behind the F-35.
The F-16s that will be supplied to Ukraine have been upgraded to the level of the 5th generation F-35. They have the same weapons in long-range detection and target identification systems. Despite its age, it is a modern aircraft, or as it is called, a flying platform, which can be used depending on the mission for air defense, air combat, or striking ground targets.
When it comes to the F-16, there are a few misconceptions being spread that we really need to avoid. Sometimes people say that it requires some kind of special runways for takeoff and landing. It does not. That's the whole point. And again, this is something that needs to be taken seriously because there is a certain critical mass building up in terms of the supply of weapons and military equipment to Ukraine. Sooner or later, a chain reaction may begin when the weaponry becomes sufficient to solve major operational and strategic tasks.
Will F-16s be able to destroy Russian bombers launching glide bombs? Theoretically and practically, yes. The Orks drop guided bombs from a distance of about 40 to 50 kilometers from the front line. The F-16 is equipped with the AIM-120 AMRAAM missile, which is capable of hitting targets at a distance of up to 150 kilometers.
So just do the math.
That is, with such missiles in their arsenal, the Phantoms can destroy Russian aircraft while they are dropping bombs, all while remaining at a relatively safe distance themselves. The very fact that this is possible should already reduce the occupiers' activity in the sky, because, unlike people, they actually value their aircraft.
But again, we have to honestly admit that our aerospace forces do not have such complete air superiority to be able to send bombers, long-range aviation, or even tactical aviation to strike these airfields in this manner.
To enable the timely detection of Russian targets and to guide F-16s to them, Sweden has provided Ukraine with airborne early warning and control aircraft.
These will be AWACS aircraft. This means you can identify incoming cruise missiles, drones, and other targets.
But first and foremost, the arrival of such AWACS will greatly extend the vision of the F-16s.
Thanks to this Swedish duo, the F-16 will be able to see up to 450 kilometers while remaining undetected itself, since it doesn't need to use its own radar. This means that when the F-16 appears in the sky, all targets are illuminated, identified, locked on, and the pilot just needs to press launch.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
As a bonus, the F-16 is equipped with a full range of modern accessories and gadgets for destroying ground targets at depths of over 300 kilometers. It's no wonder the Crimean Bridge was told to get ready. Obviously, with only a small number of aircraft available, we're not yet talking about strikes on the enemy's rear, or, even more so, on its sacred territory. In this case, besides air defense, Russia is also protected by the restrictions imposed by Western allies. But everything has its time. There was a time when the very idea of transferring these planes seemed like science fiction.
If they fly out of Romania, as they're saying now, or out of Poland, or if they fly out of Moldova, will we strike?
I'm not going to be naming any specific targets at this particular moment. The comprehensive list of potential targets, that's certainly not something we should be openly discussing. Why we are currently on live television.
It's no coincidence that Moscow is trying to scare the West with red lines and dire consequences for transferring combat aircraft to Ukraine, because they understand the risks and are afraid of losing their advantage in the skies.
And now there are, ongoing discussions about the F-16 aircraft, which really can be equipped to effectively carry nuclear weapons. We've said this publicly. Our systems that will be monitoring these aircraft won't be able to distinguish between a plane that isn't equipped with nuclear weapons and one that is carrying nuclear weapons. And to answer your question, how will we respond? That, of course, is a question for the military to answer. They know what they're doing.
But in the West, they finally realized that Putin is like the boy who cried wolf too many times. And now Putin can tie a little handkerchief out of his red lines and sob into it. And to the skeptics and pessimists in Ukraine, I'd like to say, even having just 6 F-16s is much better than not having them at all. We hope there will be more. As many as are needed to defeat the aggressor. And for now, even a relatively small number of F-16 fighter jets in the Ukrainian sky will undoubtedly mean significantly fewer Shaheds and other dangerous missiles flying at our homes and civilian infrastructure, and consequently, fewer anxious nerves for the Kremlin's old and increasingly desperate conquerors.
The consensus among Western elites is that for the next 3 years, support for Ukraine will be provided to the fullest extent possible. And we shouldn't lull ourselves with calculations that there will be some kind of diplomatic solution. There won't be. General Milley offers us diplomacy in the form of essentially signing a peace agreement on terms that are unacceptable to Russia.
Honestly, I am a little bit worried.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.